You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It's takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them.
Keep on doing what you do, Rick. You're my favorite host. Favorite host.
This freedom is anything but free. What we have here. Toga, 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 toga. Click, click, boom. I'm coming down on the stereo, with me on the radio. Click, click, boom.
I want you to kill every golfer on the course.
Check me if I'm wrong, Sandy, but if I kill all the golfers, they're going to lock me up and throw away the key.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to KLRNradio.com. You are listening to our State of the Union 2018 recap show. This was originally supposed to be the Jenn and Rick show, followed by the America Off the Rails show, but Donald Trump talked forever, so instead we're going to do a hybrid, because I have both of my co-hosts on with me anyway, which is why if you were tuning in, you heard all three intros. I was like, what the heck? We're just going to throw this up under the station feed, talk until we got nothing else to talk about, and then call it a night. So, without further ado, I do have my co-hosts with me, Jenn and Rick from the Jenn and Rick Show, and Mr. Dan, or Jen Homestead from the Jenn and Rick Show. Wow. I promise, folks, regardless of what it may sound like right now, I was not partaking in any of the State of the Union drinking games, because the station manager would have my head if I was. But anyway, so we are live right now, and I am joined by Jen Homestead, my co-host on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and also Dan Wright, my co-host from Fridays. And, of course, you know me on the weekdays, evenings, I usually do America Off the Rails. We were going to change things up a bit tonight and move the shows a little bit later because of the State of the Union, but I had no idea it was going to be like an hour and 20 minutes long and not start until 10 minutes after it was supposed to. So instead, we're just going to kind of come together now, talk about a few things, give impressions. We're going to do things a little bit different, because you guys hear me talk all the time. What I'm going to do is, since it's Tuesday, we're going to kick off with Jen. I'm going to let her give you guys her first impressions, then we'll move on to Dan, and then I'll give you guys mine. So Jen, what did you think overall?
So overall, it was great. And, you know, here's the thing about this, and some people already said this earlier today, like, get ready for that was presidential. That's all we're going to hear for the next few days. And they're right, though, and for good reason. When it comes to stuff like this, he tends to not go off like he does when he's on the campaign trail or at one of his rallies, or, you know, on Twitter, let's say. But he tends to, you know, stick to the speech, maybe ad-libs a little bit here or there, but mostly sticks to the speech and delivers it fairly well, and does not have, I mean, he's fairly skilled in speaking on something that he has either memorized partially and then also used a teleprompter for, but delivering that kind of thing, which, by the way, is a skill that all, you know, major speakers have. This is not like some people get so like, oh, he used a teleprompter, oh, he did this, he did that, and people did it with Obama too, which was true, but this is something all all public speakers skills that they need to master. And he's mastered it well, and he delivered it well. And I think that the content of the speech was mostly pretty great. There were a few places here or there where I went a little, but for the most part, like, it was really good. And it also extremely exposed the Democrats, because there were so many moments that were just based on just, praising or acknowledging some American greatness or things that have improved, things that all of us should be for, that they sat on their hands and had scowls on their faces. And it just exposed who they are, that no matter what this president does, no matter what he says, and no matter how much this country transforms for the better throughout his administration, whether it's his because of his direct hand or not, or inherited. Some things are not directly controlled by the president. So the way that they sat there and scowled and couldn't bring themselves to clap for certain things that should not be controversial absolutely exposed them for their political bias and for their hatred of this one man, as opposed to applauding this country.
And Dan, your first impressions?
Well, I thought that, like Jen said, I thought he did. I even want to say I don't really even know if I want to say great, but he kind of did. I mean, not being a huge Trump fan, I felt he was very presidential, and
Dan's gonna take a shot. I'm just playing.
Well, I'm going to leave it at that. I thought he was great, to be honest with you. And watching, this is what just irks me. And it irks me on both ends, maybe, when it comes to the State of the Union, because these things, they go the same way. But watching the Democrats just sit there with their hands under their freaking thighs when he said things like, American businesses coming back to America, and African American unemployment being at the lowest rate in history, and anything having to do with the tax plan making things better, they all sat there. Really, those are all things that are good. And I get it. There's times, obviously, when there were times when Barack Obama gave his State of the Union that Republicans sat. I get it. It's like a tradition, whatever. But when he said something good, they stood and they clapped. I mean, really, the fact that the one thing, two things that really got me. The one thing was African American unemployment being at the lowest rate in history. For them to sit there and scowl. They do not want it to be at the lowest rate in history. It hurts them. It hurts them. They don't care about the unemployment rate being low. They don't care because it hurts them. It takes base away from them, which shows that, I mean, honestly, everybody, but especially the African American community, should really look at that. When a president says that the African American unemployment rate is at the lowest it's ever been, the African American community should look at those Democrats sitting there and not applauding that and go, "What the hell? Why aren't you clapping?
Right.
That's a good thing."
They should. And there were so many different things like that. Like, why would that not be something that you want to celebrate, regardless of, whose presidency it came about under? And there was another one that I thought was really pointed. It was mostly a standing ovation, but there were still some on the Democratic side, and I couldn't see well enough to be able to identify who these people were. But there was a scattering, or there was a smattering of at least 10 or so people on the Democratic side that sat during the recognition of Congressman Steve Scalise and, the basically attempted assassination on him and his recovery. And, okay, Trump played it, the legend from Louisiana. Okay, that was kind of cheesy and whatever. But that's not only like your coworker, your brethren, your peer, but this is someone who was attacked heinously.
The people dreamed.
My bad. I was being sent audio and I didn't realize it was going to start live playing as soon as I hit it.
But this is someone who was attacked heinously by someone who's very obviously anti-American by wanting to go slaughter any member of any of our political parties, is strongly anti-American, no matter their motivations. And there were still Democrats that sat, and that is just inexcusable to me. That's just, there is no reason not to stand up and applaud Steve Scalise and his recovery and the efforts that have been made to get him back in his seat and be able to actually work for his constituency. That is blatant partisanship.
No, absolutely. And you even said it like an assassination attempt on him. It was an assassination attempt on everybody on that field.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody on that field now has to live in that moment. They have to live with that moment. Everybody that was there were children there. Their dads, their moms are out there on that field, and somebody opens fire. That's a moment that if it had happened the other way around, and it had been a gunman gunning down the Democrats, I would feel awful about it. I would absolutely just, in that moment right there, I would have been up applauding. And I don't understand that mindset. I don't understand the mindset of partisan politics to the point where you get personal like that. I don't get it.
Well, it's called humanity, and some people get so clouded by politics that they lose their humanity. They get so eat up and so embittered with all sorts of political aspects that they cannot see the humans behind some things like this, like a tragedy like this. And that speaks so much about the people that they are. I don't think it says something about Democrats as a whole, because like I said, they mostly did stand and applaud. I think it says something about those bitter and cynical human beings that I'm not sure what hope there is for them if they can't muster a clap for someone like Scalise, who has recovered from such an atrocious event.
No, and I agree with you. And, I come, and I know you two do too, Jen. I mean, I come from a family, my brother, who's my best friend in the world. I'll say he's a centrist Democrat. We talk a lot, and I know that was something, if he was watching tonight, he would have been totally on board with Trump. And it's not all Democrats, but anybody that can't acknowledge that is just it's party over being a human being.
Yeah.
It's
party over people.
Yep. It's ridiculous. And that's why I always watch these State of the Unions, and I've been mad at Republicans. I have been. I'm not, I like to say it and everybody gives me crap. I'm not a binary thinker. I watched 8 years of State of the Unions from Obama. And I'm not going to sit here and say I hated everything he ever said or everything he ever did. I hated most of it. But, there were times, great speaker, and he didn't do everything horribly. There were times he could speak. There were times I was like, yeah, that's cool. You did that. That's cool. With Trump, there are just people that are just like, I don't care what he does. I don't care if he saves my puppy from a burning building and puts $1 million in my bank account. He's a piece of crap. That, I just can't deal with that. I don't deal with those kind of people.
I agree. There's something about actual, legitimate criticism, and there's disagreement on policy, and there's even dislike of someone in their actions, and their behaviors. There's a total difference when it's just a blind hatred, and that's, what we all call TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. But it's happened with other politicians too. It's not new to politics. It's just feels new at at this high of a level that it's stayed so constantly like fever pitch for so long now, and it's infected almost every kind of group you can think of except for his very, very hardcore base. So it's kind of a new thing to behold, and it's still hard to wrap my brain around.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's, people like you and me and Rick, we can criticize, personally, I really don't care for Trump. But policy-wise and everything he's doing right now, I've been incredibly pleasantly surprised with how things are going. But, you and I and Rick, we can sit here on social media in any given day, and we can be called a Trumpkin, and we can be called a liberal.
Right.
Within 10 minutes.
Within a few seconds of each other.
Daily. On the same tweet.
Yeah, in the same thread, I can be called all kinds of names. All right, so not to take control back for a second, but you guys kind of kept going without me. I was supposed to get to give my opinion, too. All right, so anyway.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I'm just giving you grief. All right, so to back things up for just a second, before we do that, my impression of it kind of goes along with something that I just saw. So as you guys know, as social media has become more prevalent and they've gotten computer programs put together that can analyze the number of words that are used during a speech and kind of point out the most prevalent ones, I want to point out a stark contrast between most of Barack Obama's State of the Union addresses and the first one so far that President Trump has done. If you remember when they did the word cloud studies on Barack Obama, some of the most often used words in his State of the Union addresses were I, me, my. And those were the ones that were most prevalent. If you guys have seen the word cloud things before, it shows all the different words, and it kind of pushes the ones that are used less to the background so they look like they're further away. The more often used words are closer to the front, bigger type, bolder, so they stand out more. So those were some of Barack Obama's most often used words during his speeches, especially State of the Unions. The one that they just did for the speech tonight, 5,210 words. The most prevalent words were America, people. America was actually in there it was in there like multiple times. It was like big and bold, and then it was off to the side in the background, and a little more and a little less bold. But it was like America, it was people, it was family, it was home. Those were the things that he was talking about in the speech. And that's what I think he did well, because he could have come out and done the whole fake news, Russia, fake, huge, and he didn't do any of that. He focused.
Fair point.
He focused on, and honestly, I'm surprised he didn't, because it's what he does every other time he gets a microphone. How many other times has he not been able to get out of his own way when he does something that would have otherwise been excellent? Case in point, the code talkers in the Oval Office, and he made it about Pocahontas and then even said it wrong.
Yeah, I do think that it is kind of interesting that people, like, one of the big criticisms that has come out of several of his more presidential speeches, where he has, had a speech to memorize, it was written for him, obviously, and then, use a teleprompter. I find it funny that those are huge criticisms. Well, by the way, this is what happens with most public speakers, especially politicians. Like, this is nothing new. That's not a criticism to say, well, yeah, you know what? The only reason it was good was because he read someone else's speech. Well, yeah, most presidents do, at least for the last 50 years and longer. Like, no, come on, that is not a valid criticism. You can say that it differs from his normal style. You can say, oh, he buttoned up tight for this, that kind of thing. But I mean, that is not a valid thing to go off on him about, like, well, he couldn't do it himself. So, well, guess what? They all employ speechwriters, hundreds of them actually. And then there's a select few that do the most basic or the most prominent, writing for them. But there's a whole team that feeds into this stuff for every single politician. This is not something that you can go, well, yeah, it was a speechwriter. Yeah, they all have them. They all go off their speechwriters. They're there to hit their points and to make sure a message gets across, and so that they don't go off script and go crazy and get themselves in trouble. That's the point. So I'm kind of sick of that part of it, but I was sick of it with other politicians too. It's been criticized by the media for a long time, and especially by liberals, but they conveniently ignore it when it comes to their side.
Speaking of liberals, I got to get this in because Al in the chat room just said that watching Nancy Pelosi tonight, actually, hang on. How exactly did he word that? Because the wording is important. Hang on just a second. Where's that at? Nancy Pelosi looked like she had just wiped her behind with a cheese grater.
Did you see the comparison, the side-by-side of her with her, like, screwed up face? Like, with her lips kind of shrewd to the side, and it was a side-by-side of her and Michaela Maroney, the famous gymnast that looked like that on the medal stand when she didn't win the medal she thought she was going to win.
No, I hadn't seen that, but that.
Okay, I'm gonna have to share it with y'all on Twitter. It's pretty funny because it's pretty spot on. But hey, real quick before we go too much further into anything, I wanted to say something about the very beginning of the State of the Union. He gave a shout out to several groups that I thought it's really worth noting. First off was the Cajun Navy, who did such tremendous work during Hurricane Harvey and the relief efforts afterwards. We're talking about people that this is a civilian group that has organized. They've kind of come to call themselves this after helping work several different disasters. And they call themselves the Cajun Navy. There's also the Texas Navy, and they pretty much kind of merged into a bigger Cajun Navy during the Harvey rescue efforts and then relief efforts. And this is pretty much like a normal group of guys. This would be people that most elitist Dems would scoff at because they're rednecks, and or they would call, kind of country bumpkins. They're rural. They're not like these city dwelling folks, even though some of them actually are. And they have boats, they have trucks, they have supplies, they have necessary survival skills, and they have the will and the way to go and help people. And they do this, on their own time, on their own dime, and they risk their own safety and their own property, and they sacrifice who knows how much time of their jobs and their livelihood to go help people and save people. And they were so instrumental in rescuing so many people during Harvey and then helping people recover. So I thought that was so amazing that this kind of grassroots little army that has formed, the Navy, the Cajun Navy, got a shout out at the State of the Union by the President of the United States for their efforts during Hurricane Harvey. That is just incredible to me. And maybe it's because I'm from the area and I actually was so involved in all of that in an online manner and in a coordination manner. And I was on the Zello app, like helping when they wouldn't have very great connection. I could look up stuff, and I was kind of helping direct with other people to get them resources and get them names and get them locations and phone numbers and whatever else we could do. The work that they did is just, it's really unbelievable. And, you know, I know it was a big deal on Twitter, and I know it was a big deal for people that know what it was, and it got some attention on mainstream media, but I think it's just absolutely amazing that they got a shout out at the State of the Union from the President of the United States. And then equally so, like firefighters in California, some of the other relief workers in Puerto Rico. I mean, just that all of these people got a special moment to be recognized by name from President Trump, I think was really, really cool.
No, I agree with you. Absolutely. And these are the same guys that, like, where it really kind of, if I'm not mistaken, really kind of got started was during Katrina. And these were the same guys that, while rescuing people, were getting shot at by looters.
Yes. Yes, that is exactly right.
They were literally rescuing people, helping people out of their homes, and looters wanted the stuff in their boats, so they were shooting at them.
Right. And
citizens, not cops, not firefighters, which would have been awful anyway. These are guys that were like, well, we can't work. I have a boat. I'm going to go rescue people.
Right. Right.
And
I've got a
shot at.
Well, not only that, but in a lot of these cases, especially once the flooding in the Houston area got so bad, a lot of them were from outer areas that weren't initially affected, and then they were losing their own property, and they were still helping people. They also were given quite a bit of leeway with, certainly with county and state costs, but with the United States Coast Guard. There were a few times where the Coast Guard was communicating with the Cajun Navy directly, a few different kind of people that had become the heads, I guess. They had become the contact points for several different groups of the Cajun Navy that were in different places along the Texas coast, from pretty much like Rockport up to Houston, and maybe even a little bit further down, but all these areas that were being completely decimated, and then they were still getting hit over and over by various, levees breaking and other things that were happening. And they were getting, they were at first being called off by the Coast Guard. Then once the Coast Guard kind of realized what the efforts were here, and once there was some communication from local authorities and state authorities, then the Coast Guard actually used them to help them with their efforts and to help them guide them in their efforts, because they knew it better than they did, because they'd already been there for several days, or they already had people from the area that were on the boats with them that knew where to tell them to go, knew the terrain, knew the directions. And so that it was just so incredible. And it got, like I said, it got a little bit of attention in national news here and there. Some of the live feeds were from a boat, from someone claiming to be in the Cajun Navy and whatnot. And and there's so many other groups of volunteers that deserve, all the accolades. But I just thought that was such a special moment. It was so cool for me, having worked with and known so many that were involved in those efforts, that it made my heart soar to hear him call them out by name, because they were so instrumental in Harvey.
Well, yeah, I and it was a funny thing. I knew I really thought I was going to hear something from you after he said that, and I did. And something else that I just really want to just throw in real quick, if we're going to move on, because it's something that I used to be involved in. Another group that helped tremendously during this was the Civil Air Patrol. which is all volunteer
Mm-hmm.
and recognized by the Air Force, but it's all volunteers with their own planes going up and doing search and rescue. And there's people out there that have never even heard of the Civil Air Patrol.
Right.
But it's an amazing group. And like I said, all volunteer. And I actually personally know guys that have lost their lives trying to help stranded sailors or whatever. They are incredibly instrumental during times like that, and that's what people don't recognize. And especially everybody's screaming, FEMA needs to do this, FEMA needs to do that. We really, honestly, we do maybe need FEMA, but when it comes down to tragedies like Harvey and Katrina and everything else, if you really look, the American people are really what we need.
Right.
Volunteers like the Cajun Navy and the Civil Air Patrol, the Civil Air Patrol guys that are just like going up in their own planes they own. The government isn't maintaining them. They go up.
Well, and this kind of goes back.
Other volunteers with them. They do watches. They search. It's literally search and rescue. They're radioing down to the Coast Guard and to the local police. We have somebody here. You really need to get to them. That's what they do.
Well, and this kind of all goes, like we said, we need the American people. I do think that there's a place for FEMA, and I think that it can help distribute needed goods and necessities, and that it can help people after the volunteers have all had to pack up and leave. And so I think there is a necessity for it. I think the idea to turn to it immediately, like FEMA can do something right when the flooding happens, is pretty naive and silly. And then they get blamed for so much because of that, which I also think is unwarranted. But you said it exactly, like what we need is the American people. And I think that goes back to, just a little bit into a speech where he said, the state of our union is strong because our people are strong. And that's so true. I mean, it's such a strong statement, and it's not unique in any way. It's not his brainchild, but it's something that bears repeating. The union is strong because our people are strong.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I was 11, 12, 13 years old, I was in Civil Air Patrol. I went up in planes, and I lived in Florida. And they did what was called the sundown patrol. And you went out in a plane, and you looked for boats that were in trouble at sundown. I did that. And that's And to get back, I know we're kind of a little bit going off track, but we aren't. The president recognizing the Cajun Navy was huge to me.
Me too.
And like I said, as soon as he said it, I thought of you. I knew you were. I knew you were just going nuts over that.
Yeah, and you know what? And I want to say something real quick. Had it been Obama or Clinton, or let's say Hillary Clinton is president right now, had she commended the Cajun Navy in our alternate universe, if she had commended them for their efforts, I still would have tweeted what I did. I still would have been giddy about it because it is worth the recognition. It is important, and that has nothing to do with politics. That has everything to do with celebrating great people in our country that come together and help other Americans in a time of need. Period.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back, folks. Got to take a break. Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
The people dreamed this country. The people built this country. And it's the people who are making America great again.
And there you have it, folks. One of the actual highlights for me was that line right there. Because going back to what I had talked about, when I talked about kind of the stark contrast for me between a Trump State of the Union address and an Obama State of the Union address, I barely ever heard him say the word I. It was we, it was the people, it was America. It was, and again, this was the first time that I heard him 99.9% of the time staying positive on message with almost no slip-ups. And just because I know somebody's going to hate me for saying it, I'm going to throw this out there for me too. It was the first time he actually really sounded presidential to me. Everything else, even when he was trying to, it came off as forced. This was the first time I think he's really starting to step into the role a little more. And I don't know if maybe it's because somebody's finally set him down and he's had a come to Jesus moment about, you can't talk like the off the cuff guy all the time. There are times when you have to be, a head of state, whether you want to be or not. Because that's one of the things that I didn't like about him all the way through the primary was he was bull in a china shop and he never had an off switch. Tonight he had an off switch. He managed to stay out of his own way. He didn't make it about him. He didn't make it about the fake media. He didn't make it about Russia. He didn't make it about the memo. He focused on the things that for him have been working, which are things that nobody else is really even talking about except for those of us out here on the fringes that are like, hey, we don't like the guy either, but things are working. And then what drives me nuts, and this happened to me all day today, anytime I said anything positive about the economy, somebody would send back a link that talked about how low the GDP was for 2017. Here's a newsflash for those of you that don't understand how the economy works. Fiscal year 2017 actually started in October of 2016. Fiscal year 2017 didn't end until September of 2017. With the way the appropriations work, even though President Trump was elected in January, everything was still basically running on the Obama economy clock until October of 2017. At that point, that's when things that the president had started steering in the right direction had started taking effect, and that's why towards the end of that, we actually had GDP starting to hit above 3% for the first time in a very long time. And
yeah,
and I see Jen's back now, so you're welcome to chime in anytime, Jen.
I am back. But go ahead, Dan.
No, watching this, this is why I've always had a problem with the State of the Union, and it does come down to partisan politics, and I've always gone in, everyone I've ever watched, I've always gone into it with an open mind. You have to go into these with an open mind. Now, I totally agree with you, Rick. I can't recall him saying I once. I'm sure he did, but I didn't notice. He never said I. He said America a lot. He said people a lot, and American people. And I rarely heard him say I.
Well,
that to me is a great speech, because he's not talking about himself. He's talking about what we are all doing. I mean, and I mean that because this is what people don't understand about not just the president, but our senators, our congressmen. We don't work for them. They work for us. It's supposed to be, we put them there, and they're supposed to do what we want them to do. Now, I know that there are congressmen, senators, presidents on the other side of what we believe, but they're still supposed to have our best interest at heart. That's not the way it is anymore. They have their best interest at heart.
And their electability at heart.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been in, I'm involved with the I'll throw a plug out there. I'm involved with the Federalist Party, okay? And they put something out there the other day about term limits. And it was a poll. Would you like term limits set at this, or this? And I picked, the bottom end of it was 4 2-year terms on Congress. which I picked that, and then I tweeted them, and I said I would actually rather have it changed to 4-year terms and 2 4-year terms, because that way they aren't spending half their time campaigning. That's what we have representing us, is we have all these people that their entire life is based on staying in office, and they have a 2-year term, and half of that 2-year term is spent campaigning so they can get their next 2-year term, and then they stay in office for 30 years. Why are we like this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think I am hesitant about term limits in general because I think that we have them. We have elections. Those are supposed to be the term limits. And the American people, even if they choose what we think is wrong, or people from another state is unwise or whatever, still though we have that choice. And then sometimes some of the hardcore term limit people, you can get, if you think about it logically, you could get a lot of, you'll get fresh blood, and you'll get people that have new ideas, and they're not worried about their reelection and all of that kind of thing. That could be good. It could also be kamikaze bad, because you've got you could end up with a lot of inexperience there. It takes a while to figure out the inner workings of any job, but especially something as ridiculous as Washington has become. And then, that's more of the problem than the actual term. And then also, you could get the people that, like I said, kamikaze, like they don't care because they don't have to worry about reelection. So they just torpedo their way through their entire term. So I'm hesitant about term limits in general. I do think that an age limit might be possibly appropriate. And I know I'll get all the people coming at me that are like, ooh, ageist. But I mean, there is a certain point where, well, there is a certain point in which in normal human biology, your faculties start to decrease, no matter how bright you stay and how into it you are. It's very rare that someone doesn't have decreased faculties past 75. But that's not to say that there aren't people that don't. That happens too. But the term limit thing kind of throws me off just a little bit, because we have them. It's called our American people's elections, and I know incumbents win more often than that. So that's why we've got to change the culture behind that, as opposed to setting restrictions on what we could then miss out on some really good people that are striving for good and that have figured out how to work the system. Unfortunately, that also comes with bad, the people that have figured out to work the system in a bad way. But I think with this entire thing that he, going back to the State of the Union with Trump and the job sense, I don't know how much you covered before I came back, and sorry for that. I had a husband that came home, and I needed a glass of water because, like Rick said, Dan and I talked a whole lot. But I was interested in one thing. So he says unemployment claims hit a 45-year low. I'm interested to know those numbers and how they were found, because I know that y'all all remember that during the Obama administration that they used numbers all the time to say that the unemployment rate was 4.3% and this and that. And what we knew to be actually true was that only included certain statistics. It did not account for the people that had stopped looking for work. It had not included people, or it had included people that were of certain little demographics and whatever. So I'd just be interested to know, like, what those, and I haven't delved into it too much to figure it out, but like, what do those numbers include? Are they the same kind of wonky manipulative type deal that other administrations have used, or is that a true statement to make? Is that really what it is? Is it really at the lowest it's been? I have seen some stuff about the African American unemployment and the Hispanic American unemployment rates that do seem to signify that they are the lowest that they've been in a very long time. And I'm not sure how much credit any one person can take for that, but it does seem that those are more on a truer level. I'm just interested about the 45-year low thing. I'm not on the up and up about that. I don't know if either one of y'all are.
Well, I agree with you. I've looked at the minority stuff, and what I've seen seems to hold true. I agree with you. I would like to see all the stats, and I'd like to see real stats. And oh my goodness, I might need to completely turn my TV off because Stephen Colbert just came on ready to do his State of the Union show. I bet that's going to be wonderful.
Okay, so just to clarify a little bit on the numbers, they're actually pulling from the numbers reports that actually do pull out the folks that have stopped looking for work. To give some folks some background on why those numbers were started, the reason they started pulling those numbers, that started happening in the 80s. Because under the Reagan administration, they had so many people that were leaving the workforce to start businesses of their own. So it was causing the unemployment numbers to skew in the wrong direction. So what's been happening now for several decades is they figured out how to make that skewing work in their favor. But the thing to keep in mind is keeping in account that these are the U4 numbers, which are the ones that take out the other two brackets, because there's the U4s, the U6s. U6 is what is actually really kind of deemed as the true unemployment rate. And it was what they used to use before they started removing the people that were currently out of the workforce and no longer looking for work. But the new number for African American unemployment rate is down from nearly 10%, even using the U4 number, which is still vastly skewed because it doesn't account for the people that are out of the workforce and not actively working. But that number, even though it is skewed, is still down almost a full 4%. It's down to like 6.9%. So it's, I guess it's about 3%. So because it was like 9.95 at one point at the highest number under the U4 that I can find. Now it's clocked at about 6.9. So, and wow. I mean, there has been a drastic drop. Now, there's also been a steady hiring of the African-American community for the last several years. The biggest difference, and one of the reasons why the Democrats are trying to give Barack Obama some of the credit about this, is because there was a lot of African-American people that were being hired under the Obama administration. But they were being hired either as underemployed or not full-time workers. Over the last year, that has started transitioning to more people actually finding full-time work. So and that's, I mean, and you can give whoever you want to give credit for it. I don't care who gets credit for it. If you want to say the Democrats did it, that's fine. You're full of crap, but that's fine. If you want to say the Republicans did it, that you're full of crap, but that's fine. Look, the simple fact of the matter is, one of the things that Donald Trump got right, it's not the government that's fixing this stuff. The government is getting out of our way. One of the biggest things that he talked about that was an important thing for me was the amount of regulations that have been cut under this administration in the first year. The fact that he's cut more regulations than any other president in our history, if that is true, is a very scary thing. Not because he's actually done it, but because he had to do it in the first place.
Well, I would say one thing, and I did note this. The whole in our history thing, I think is... it's still true, but it's a little disingenuous because at the beginning of our country, we didn't have very many to cut for pretty much, the first 100 years until going into the industrial age and then having to deal with unions and all sorts of other things. So it's kind of it's not wrong to say it, but it's one of those things where it's like, but there were a lot of presidents who didn't have to ever worry about deregulating anything. So the history is shortened on that. You know what I mean? That's just nitpicky. But it did kind of like perk my ears up a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, but the fact that we are so overregulated, the overregulation
is out of control.
Well, yeah, it's completely out of control, and I didn't really get to get back to you on. I agree with you on your view on term limits. I really do, but like I said, the whole congressional terms being 2 years.
Oh, I agree with that 100%.
Stupid.
It is.
Stupid.
It's very silly. It's very silly. I think that could be changed.
It should be 4 years, because what they do, if you look at, and it does, I don't care who it is. I don't care whether they're Republican or Democrat. If you look at their voting record, they're terrible because they spend half of their term campaigning to get reelected. Make it 4 years. So at least they spend 3/4 of their term doing something and paying attention and not worried about getting reelected. I mean,
Oh, I totally
it's
agree.
ridiculous.
I totally agree.
I
think that there could be a way that we could make this to where it's not a constant reelection campaign, and they could actually do their dang jobs.
And I also believe, and this may be unpopular, I don't care, that we need to get back to senators should be picked by state legislature and not voted on.
Oh, you and Corbin, CD Payne on Twitter at CD Payne, y'all would be besties on this, because he probably tweets something out about that like once a week. He is so big on repealing that and abolishing that idea. It's not even funny, and I don't think that that's wrong. I think it's totally within the realm and actually was a part of the original Constitution.
It was, and it was part of the checks and balances.
Right.
It was congressmen were picked by the people, and senators were picked by the state.
Yeah, you have a balance. You have a balance there of
Right.
a kind of a popularity vote, a Democratic vote, and then what is kind of like our Electoral College, a little bit more of a trusted vote there from people that you've chosen to lead you.
Exactly. And I think part of it, and part of what I liked about that system is that person picked by the state could be fired. That was,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
They could be fired. They could be, if the state decides that you're not doing right by the state, we can just say, you're fired. We're going to pick somebody else.
And I mean, each way it's done has its pros and cons. But with the way things have gotten lately, with everything being a popularity contest, I really do like the idea of moving back to the senators being appointed by the state. All right, so to move us back to one last topic real quick, and then we got to make fun of Baby Kennedy because his Twitter exposure has not been great tonight. But one of the things that I wanted to point out, and this is actually something that I was rather impressed with, was President Trump mentioning. And I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but I'm going to kind of encompass a tweet that was put out by a friend of ours, Politibunny. A man who got hit by a train and traveled thousands of miles on crutches stood up for freedom tonight while Democrats sat on their asses and pouted.
Yeah, Sung Ho,
yeah. I mean, and that basically sums up the whole the State of the Union. The Democrats sat there while the president talked about jobs coming back to America. Now, let's not forget, Barack Obama and the Democrats told us those jobs were gone, that we had to find a way to move forward. Those jobs were never coming back. And in 2017, Donald Trump basically said, hold my beer. Now, in 2018, we have jobs on the way back in that everybody kept telling us we weren't ever going to get back again. They sat on their hands for that. This guy, he literally traveled hundreds of miles, thousands of miles for freedom. And the Democrats sat on their hands. I don't understand. I mean, I know what their messaging is at this point because it's all they have anymore. They're standing on stage with their fingers in their ears yelling, la, 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 we can't hear you. That's their entire message right now. Because anything that happens now that's positive they, especially when they keep voting against anything that creates the positivity, I mean, they're trying to do what the Republicans did, and they're failing miserably, because when the Republicans stood up against the ACA and started voting to try to get rid of it and started trying to put the brakes on it, they were, whatever their true motivations were, the American public read it as people that were trying to stand up for them. The Democrats are doing the same thing. They've become an obstructionist party, but they're doing it for all the wrong reasons. So they look like a bunch of petulant morons fighting for illegal immigrants over American citizens. And I know Democrats that are pissed about this at this point. I know people that have told me that they're changing their party affiliation to independent, and if things don't start changing and figure something else out, they may even be changing to Republican, just because they're tired of having a party that is completely turning their back against them. If I was an African American person in this country right now, I would be pissed over the Democratic reaction to the unemployment numbers. I would be absolutely livid, because here we are seeing people that have been struggling finding work again for the first time in a long time, and the Democrats are sitting on their hands with bitter pickle faces, and I'm just sitting here going, what is the matter with you? I mean,
wait, can I?
Sure.
Can I say something about that? Something that they should have overwhelmingly applauded for, because I was scowling and wanting to throw something at the TV over, and they still didn't, because Trump paid family leave.
Oh, yeah.
This is something that obviously most Republicans are against and most Democrats are for. But because it was Trump, they sat there. Some of them kind of lightly clapped. A few people stood and cheered. But most of them still sat there fairly sourpussed because Trump suggested it. And if it happens under Trump, they'll still be mad because they didn't get it through. Obama didn't put it through. Whoever they think their future is didn't put it through. Their queen didn't get elected to put it through, but Trump did. And it's totally anti-conservative and anti-Republican and truly pro-Democratic Party. And they still couldn't muster up the enthusiasm to applaud and cheer him for it. He even looked at them and did a little what, come on, let me hear you. And they still just sat there all mad-faced.
Yeah, it doesn't, I see it. I get it all the time. That it doesn't matter how good it is. I get the whole, if I say one nice thing about something Trump did, he's my boy. He's your boy. You're a Trump cheerleader.
You're either all right. You're either all right or you're a liberal.
Right. The fact that I can't win means that I'm winning. That's the way I look at it.
So, actually, I guess some of you have probably seen it because I've been sharing a lot of them lately because they made me laugh until I basically just told them I was done. But apparently I'm a Trump pom-pom boy.
Yes, I saw that.
I
was thinking about sending you some pom-poms.
I'll use them. I ain't scared. All right, so, actually I want to talk a little bit about the paid leave thing, and then we will move on to Kennedy for the last few minutes, because we might as well just run to the top of the hour, because we're like 11 minutes away now anyway. All right, so so the paid leave thing. That's another one of those things where if, I had the folks that had the bricks that they were going to send us some samples because we were going to start trying to give them away on the shows, and then they backed out. If I had one of those, I'd have been throwing it at my TV. And the thing about that is, you're right. That should have been something that, and I think that's what that was. I think that was, he tried to use it as an olive branch to say, look, I'm even
no-brainer. I'm
going to even try to get you guys some of the things that you want if you'll just work with me. And I have to admit, in some ways, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I mean, I don't like that he picked this item. I really don't. And I'm still really skeptical about whatever his final plan is going to be for DACA, because to me, DACA is a terrible thing. But that makes me a racist.
Well, I think that there are a lot of ways to reach across the aisle that don't include something like this. But at the same time, I do agree with what you're saying. I think all presidents should and can compromise and reach across the aisle to a certain extent. And I won't disparage anyone for doing that has a belief in certain items that they're going to do that with. And I think that whether it's Trump's own idea or whether it's because of his daughter, that this has become something that is part of his whole, deal. And I mean, I think it's okay for presidents to fight for a few things that are personal to them that they want, and to, like I said, be a little bit bipartisan with that kind of thing. In fact, one of the things that we criticized Obama most for was his non-bipartisanship, that he said, you meet me where I want you to meet me, and that's how you'll be bipartisan. I get to be as partisan as I want to, and I will refuse anything that is not absolutely up to my standards. And I will not budge, I will not acquiesce, and I will not negotiate. And we all, rightly so, thought that was too much. And I think that unfortunately what ends up happening, where we all get a little bit bitter about it, is that Republicans tend to be a little bit more pliable in a lot of areas. And maybe some people say it's because they want to get reelected. That's what they talk about the swamp and the whole establishment thing. I also think it's that we tend to want to actually make politics work for this country, or a lot of Republicans do. And that means having to compromise sometimes. That means having to negotiate sometimes. And it means having to reach across the aisle and come together with some co-signed bills and whatever else. And it's not always going to be perfect. And it's not going to be what the hardcore side of any base wants. But it might be best for the more central part of America that is very active in voting and very active in politics, and not just rabid extremists that are holding signs up and protesting all the time, but they actually show up at the polls. And so I think that, if there's going to be something like that he wants to do, I'm not crazy about it. I wish that we'd had more of that kind of reach across from Obama in the last 8 years, and we didn't get that. We got a no, I'm going to stand my ground, you better come to me type thing, which was not exactly great or fair, but hey, he's the best leader ever. But we've seen it time and time again from our Republican presidents. We saw it a little bit with Bill Clinton too. But in my lifetime, we've mostly seen it from Republican presidents. And I'm not crazy about that entire thing, like I said, but I'll give him that. If he wants to get some people on board and make that his kind of personal quest, and that's going to be one of the main things to kind of reach across with, I'll give it to him.
No, I agree with you, Jen. You hit on a point there. If you look back at just a couple weeks now, the whole government shutdown. Now, the Republicans actually gave concessions. Mm-hmm. Those concessions weren't enough.
Right. They never are.
They're never enough. They're never enough. They're never enough. And the Democrats never give concessions. They want what they want, or they're going to stomp their feet like little children.
It's meet my demands. Right. Meet my demands, or you're racist, sexist, awful, terrible, hate the children, want to kill the puppies.
Correct. Absolutely. And it drives me crazy. And I get this like back and forth. I mean, I'm not a Republican. I haven't been for 14 years. I'm an independent. That's what I am. And I don't lean across. I actually tend to lean further right. I really do. I like to say, somebody we all know, this is who I got it from, is that the right starts at the Constitution and moves left from there. And that's from a friend of ours, Rick Canton.
Mm-hmm.
The right does. We start at the Constitution and we move left. It drives me crazy, but we people on the right tend to listen and like to debate, and we will give concessions. People on the left want what they want, and that's all that they want, and screw you. That's their attitude. That tends to be their attitude. I won't say with all of them, but with most of them, that's their attitude. Is, no, you're just going to give us what we want. We don't care about what you want. We just want what we want, and we're not going to back down, and we're going to close the government, and we're going to... It's just like, really? That whole bill to actually fund our government and keep it running had plenty of, here you go, we're going to give you this. And they said, nope, not enough. You know what? That's the little child that says, I don't just want this. You need to get me this and this and this. And if you don't, I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. That's what they do. That's what they do. And eventually, they keep throwing tantrums until somebody just says, oh, I just want you to shut up. We have to stop saying, we just want you to shut up. We have to almost start playing their game. You have to start saying, nope, well, shut the government down. We don't care. Just me, honestly, shut the government down. I don't care. Make sure all those people in the EPA aren't getting paid and see how they like it. Because I don't care about the EPA. I don't care about the IRS. I don't care about them. Shut them down. Let them shut the government down. I want the government shut down. Go ahead. Do it. We're not giving you what you want. We need to start doing that.
Okay, well, we're just about out of time. So, couple things to touch on the way out, and then I'll let you guys give contact information because we're coming up on the bottom of the hour. I did want to touch on the few of the trending topics from the baby Kennedy rebuttal. Headline from Politico: was this rule coming out of Joe Kennedy's mouth? Marco Rubio had dry mouth during State of the Union response in 2013. Joe Kennedy has drool mouth.
I haven't actually watched it, so I've just been hearing what people are saying, and it seems like it was actually pretty bad for some of the people I've seen mocking it. I was going to say nothing says democratic progress and a fresh voice like a Kennedy.
Although one of the best takes of the night that I saw is it's kind of the same thing. The best thing about putting a Kennedy in front of a car is make sure he doesn't look like he's old enough to drink and drive it off the bridge.
Yow.
So yeah.
Yowzers.
So yeah. So and then of course you have the Democratic response. Kennedy's still trending, which means he did what he was supposed to do tonight. He needs to get ready to become a primetime contender. Please, yes, run, drooly boy, I beg you.
Has anybody heard anything about the alternative State of the Union? Wasn't there wasn't Alyssa Milano and like Mark Ruffalo or some people trying to do like an alternative State of the Union? The real people's millionaires, actresses, actors.
That was yesterday. The people.
Michael Moore. Wasn't Michael Moore supposed to be?
Oh, they did it yesterday?
Well, there was the People's State of the Union from the People's Republic of Who Gives Two F's a Stand. That was done by Michael Moore. And then there was an alternate State of the Union, which was supposed to have started an hour after Trump's State of the Union, which was on BET and was Rep. Maxine Waters doing whatever she was doing over there. I just, and that's been something that has been bugging me all day. Can you imagine if a bunch of white Republicans to President Democrat black guy Barack Obama said, yeah, we ain't coming to your speech. We're going to go over here and do our own thing. They'd be like, you guys are a bunch of KKK racist haters. And I'm just what is that? I mean, have we really come to a point where we can't even... have decorum for an hour and 20 minutes and be like, I'm going to at least come listen to the speech. I mean, granted, it probably would have been something else for us to talk about because Maxine Waters probably would have had a face that looked a lot like Jurassic era Barbie. But it's still, you know, that's part of what we send you morons there to do, you know, is to, you know, do your job. Part of your job is to go to that speech. Duh.
Yeah. Exactly.
What did Maxine Waters say? Is you hot in the hot tub?
No, I'm telling you, Maxine Waters is James Brown in drag, dude. That's why he went back over to BET. He took the drag off for the night, went back to being James Brown. Now he's on his way back to DC. All right, so we're officially long. We're gonna start wrapping things up here. Any final thoughts, and then on your actually, let's do that in order. So final thoughts from you, Jen, then give your contact information. Then Dan, you can do the same, and then I'll take us out.
Okay. I was just gonna say overall, I think goal achieved here. I thought it was awesome that at the very end he was like, the people are who is making America great again. And pretty much like the shot I saw, the Republican side was staring down the Democrats. And that happened kind of all throughout this throughout the speech. Whenever it was something that shouldn't be controversial, no brainer to clap for or stand up for, and they would just all clap, 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 and then look to the left, and they would stay seated and be like just kind of like eyes boring through all of them, and it was very telling. But I thought it was pretty great. I thought, you know, the church is God, values, American first, all that kind of thing will make liberals lose their minds. That's to be expected. But it was a pretty great speech. There was not much for me to complain about. And I thought that maybe a few too many guests, but they were warranted. They were good guests to have, and actually that's always the best part of the State of the Union is the guests that are there from any president. So you know, I think it's a win overall for this presidency. I think it's a win for the Republicans, and I think it's a win for the right, even those that are not Trump supporters per se. It's a win for those of us that are more right-leaning. You can find me on Twitter at jhomestead, Facebook JR Homestead, and please check out misfitspolitics.com. We've had a few pieces up this week, including one about quitting smoking from at Boonatix Rex. So if you're struggling with that or are thinking about doing it, you should really read it because he tells a great story anyways, and then also talks about his struggle to quit, and he has done so amazingly. So check that out, and I'm sure we'll have some responses to things from tonight and further tomorrow after a lot of the craziness goes down when people light their hair on fire over the speech.
Maybe my lovely Laura and I need to check out Rex's little article. No, I thought, and I've said it before, I thought the speech was great, and I'm at this point, having been, you know, spending 2015 into 2016 and everything just being, you know, I was quote unquote never Trumper. I guess that some people really took that never seriously. I'm pleasantly surprised with 2018. I really am. I'm happy. I think things are moving in a great direction, and I think he put that forward tonight. I really do. I think he put that forward. You know, and I'm just, I hate State of the Union addresses. I watched it tonight, and I usually watch them. I get sucked in, but I definitely watched it tonight because we were doing this show, and it just, again, bothers me to watch the other side. Just, I get if it's something that comes up that's definitely partisan, you're not going to stand and clap. But, you know what? If it's something that's said that really shows the country's moving in the right direction, just stand up and clap. You know what? I mean, really, does it? I don't know. And all the wearing black, we didn't touch on that. I'm going to wear black because of getting misogynist. Whatever. Anyway, that's my take on it. And you can find me on Twitter at Madveist, M-I-E-S-T. It's spelled wrong. I know. I couldn't get the real spelling. And you can find me on Facebook. Normally, I'm a public account. It's Dan Wright, Daniel Wright. But I'm kind of private at the moment because of some stalkery things going on. But I'll be public again here in probably a week or two. Anyway, that's me.
All right, so something that I guess I must have missed at some point, it was probably when I was making fun of something. I missed the part where he announced he was going to reverse the Obama-era decision and keep Guantanamo open, so that's interesting.
Yes. Yep. He did do that. I barely caught the tail end of it because like I told you, I had to sneak away for a little bit and I missed about 7 or 8 minutes of the speech, and then I came back in right as he was saying, and it will stay at Guantanamo Bay. And I went, ooh, all right, that's happening.
Yeah, so I mean that to me is actually a good thing. I know some people are not fans of Gitmo, but I personally think I would prefer to have the people that we have housed there where they are, not somewhere over here. So final thoughts for me again. I'm not going to pull a Mark Levin because he's all on Twitter talking about how it was a Reagan-esque speech. I don't think it really rose to that level. I mean, but then again, I was a kid when Reagan spoke, and I'm probably...
I don't like that comparison ever. I hate all the comparisons to previous politicians. Like, ugh.
But yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to go Mark Levin and be like, oh my God, this was like Reagan. I will say, again, the same thing that I've said all night. I think this was the most presidential that he's ever sounded. He stayed on message. He was positive. He didn't derail at any point and go into one of his tirades about one of the things that has had him angry over the last few weeks. So all in all, this was a win for him. It was also a win for him because even though not all of the Democrats were there, the people that were watching that speech got to see exactly what they think of America when America is succeeding, and they don't like it. You could see it all over their faces. So the problem is, based on the information that I've looked at, they were expecting about 54% of the American people to tune into the speech. That means basically the only people that were really going to be watching it are usually about the same amount of people that turn out for elections anyway. So I don't think he really reached anybody new, so to speak. But he may have changed a few minds from Democratic voters, because like I said, I've heard some Democrats lately that are like, if my party doesn't start doing something to prove to me that I still matter to them, I'm going to have to make changes, because they're seeing the writing on the wall and they're looking at these people were willing to shut down a government over dreamers, but they won't do anything to make my life better. So now it's early in his presidency. Does he still have time to screw things up? Most definitely. But at the same time, this was his first State of the Union speech. In some ways, it wasn't a home run or a grand slam or anything, but I'll definitely give it a third base hit, because he hit all the major points he needed to hit. He kept it on track, and he brought a lot of positivity back to the country, I think, just from the reactions that I'm seeing on Twitter. Except for, of course, the hashtag resistance folks who are not going to like him no matter what he does. I also like the fact that so far I haven't been able to find him doing any crazy tweets. I'm not going to be waking up at 3 a.m. to check, but so far he's been keeping things on the page and not bringing it to social media. So I guess I'm sure that will have probably changed by morning. But all in all, the biggest difference for me is the stark comparison between Donald Trump, who I never really saw as a great public speaker, who actually was a decent one tonight, compared to a baby Kennedy who couldn't stop drooling the entire time that he was on stage. So much so that I saw several different tweets that now have him tagged as Drooling Kennedy. So, I mean, I'm just saying. You know, the Democrats. You know, they seem to have this name recognition thing. At least with us, you know, there was Bush 41, there was Bush 43, and then Jeb came on the scene, and we're like, no more shrubs, go away. And then they're like, Clinton's. Oh, that didn't work. Let's float a Kennedy. You already tried to float a Kennedy. He swam away. The other lady wasn't so lucky. But anyway, on that note, we are pretty much out of time. We're gonna wrap this thing up because we're actually now over the 11 o'clock hour Central and midnight Eastern, and I have to go to work tomorrow. So for those of you who want to catch this as a rebroadcast, it'll be up as a podcast here in just a moment. So if you've missed any of it, you're welcome to check it there. The restreams will be available on Thursday because I will not have time to get them edited tonight. So they're going to go out to all the syndication points on Thursday. And I will be back. Everything goes back to regular schedule tomorrow. So I'll be back 7 Eastern for America Off the Rails. Then we'll have Conservative Curmudgeon. Then we'll have Jesse's POV. And then we top off the night with the Stafford Voice. For all of you who are just now tuning in, you've missed it, so you'll have to wait for it to come back up and watch it again. This has been our State of the Union recap right here live on KRLRNradio.com, and it's kind of been a mesh of 3 shows, America Off the Rails, Jenn and Rick, and Robinson and Wright. And I'm going to let these folks go now, and I'm going to go get ready so I can actually make it to work tomorrow. And we will see you guys when we see you. Until then, take care. God bless. And remember, according to Donald Trump, it's actually the American people that are making America great again. That's actually one of my favorite lines. Speaking of favorite lines, on the way out, producer, or actually station manager, found you a clip, I think. Hang on. Let me see if this is the right one.
We saw the volunteers of the Cajun Navy racing to the rescue with their fishing boats to save people in the aftermath of a totally devastating hurricane.
So, there's the shout out to the Cajun Navy. All right, folks, we are out. Take care. God bless. I'll be back with you tomorrow.